Hi everyone, welcome to the Keptn developer meeting. And just in advance, sorry for the background noise. I have a second contributor participating in the meeting. So today we have a few items in our agenda. So we have a proposal to move Keptn Lifecycle Controller. We have release 0.3.0 for that, and also there is a graph on a dashboard for observability for the release. I also wanted to discuss Keptn 1.0 timeline quickly for those who were asking in the chat. Do we have any other topics we would like to discuss today? Anyone? Mac, I thought we wanted to discuss the plan for Keptn website bulk updates.
The what we're doing on All Saints Day.
Yes, All Saints.
Oh, okay.
Maybe All Insanes, depending how it goes.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Actually, here I'm going to add one more thing. That'll be
Yeah, I added
also.
the item. So,
I
any
did
other
that.
topics before we proceed? Okay, then I think let's start. Okay, Giovanni, would you like to take care of these topics?
Yes, I just opened a few minutes ago a proposal to move the lifecycle controller from the sandbox organization into the main Keptn organization, because I think now it's time, and by the comments of the people, I think there's huge also sentiment on doing this change, because lifecycle controller in the last days of work has really become much more mature and can start to be really used in your Kubernetes cluster to handle your deployments. So feel free to share your opinion, and if there is no one against that, we will do that change rather soon than later.
There is actually certain advantages for doing it now. So as I was grumbling last week, so there is no way to migrate projects between GitHub organizations at the moment, and it would lead to royal mess in everything related to firstly the roadmap, secondly backlog, and also there are other issues like task lists, which also do not get migrated properly when you move between the repositories, and we started experimenting with them. I already reported this defect to the GitHub team. And also, if we create GitHub pages, for example, for a temporary documentation location, etc., all of that will also not be persisted between the changes. So I would rather go forward, and as I said in the chat, I will create another discussion to actually make it a default to create projects inside Keptn, unless it's a purely sandbox and experimentation project. So I think that this approach with multiple GitHub orgs, it just doesn't make much sense at the moment. So we have a poll. I will keep it for a while, but unless there is strong negative feedback, I will probably start move today, because I need some time to do that because of KubeCon. We have presentations for Keptn Lifecycle Controller coming up. So we will need all the presenters, for example, Thomas, Andy, Alice, who else presents something around this topic, just to fix all their links. So it's better to start early. Okay. And basically that's it for lifecycle controller, I guess, for this move. And the second topic we have is 0.3 release.
Yes, also today we just in the morning release 0.3, and as you might have seen by the changelog, there are a huge amount of features that have been added. Gosh, I cannot share my screen. please share the screen, Oleg, and go to the release page so we can see.
Yeah, sure.
Because I need to restart my browser if I want to share.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, you might notice here we have a huge list of features. So now we fully support application pre-checks, post-checks, but also we added the possibility to run SLO, SLI evaluations as part of your deployment. So you can do some checks before each workload and before each application is being deployed, but also post evaluations. At the moment, we only support one provider for SLIs, which is Prometheus. But I think it's more than enough to start working and testing it out. And please provide feedback if you think we need to implement something extra, new features, or if you find any problems with that.
Yeah, so what is the level of code compatibility between Keptn and Keptn Lifecycle Controller in regards to the SLO providers?
Yeah, the plan is also then in the future to make use of the Lighthouse service to fetch SLOs and SLIs.
Well, I meant something different, mostly parsing logic, basically formats. Do we retain the same format as Keptn?
No, at the moment, no, we keep it very simple.
Okay.
Just to have something to show.
Yeah, so basically it's totally reasonable. We have a parallel discussion about OpenSLO adoption. So I'm joining today's meeting with the OpenSLO team to basically see what we can flesh out with the standard, because there are some incompatibilities, as I presented maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago at the community meeting, but it seems to be very feasible. So I think that if we create full-fledged standard, the best strategy for us would be to implement OpenSLO, so that there is interoperability.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, thanks a lot. I will try to do some promotion. So Julie is off these days, and I'll try to catch up on social media this afternoon. And yeah, speaking of OpenSLO, so you may remember a presentation I shared that highlights some changes needed, etc. So if you see some gaps, I would appreciate if you communicate them before 6 p.m. today, so that I just can accommodate it in the discussion. Well, even for me, it's a side project, but still, just for your information. Yeah. So the next topic is Grafana dashboard.
Yeah, let me just share my screen. All right, you should see my browser now. Yeah, so basically this is a follow-up to the video that Thomas, Giovanni, and I recently recorded about the newly introduced tracing and metrics capabilities for the lifecycle operator. So you might know there is also a tutorial where we showcase the capabilities in this area. And what I've added today to that is an example Grafana dashboard that you can use to view all the metrics that the lifecycle controller generates. So this lives in the examples observability directory of the lifecycle controller repository. And yeah, here we have also added two make commands to make it as easy as possible for users to follow this tutorial, and two of them being the setup for the port forward of Grafana, and then the import of the Grafana dashboard together with some documentation on how to make use of them. And yeah, so in this screenshot, we will see how the resulting dashboard will look afterwards. And yeah, that's pretty much it from my side.
Thank you. So the next topic on list is actually Keptn 1.0 timeline. So I just wanted to summarize discussions we had at the previous developer meeting, at the community meetings. So basically, we reached a consensus that 0.20, which used to be on the milestones for Keptn main repository, would become Keptn LTS, unless something really critical pops up. It basically puts us on the timeline to somewhere in late November, my understanding, for the release, give or take. So I wouldn't commit on an exact date right now, but yeah. So this is what we have with Keptn LCS. Right now, so yeah, we are planning documentation site with Mac. So this is the next topic about the website update. But I think from the Keptn core side, we still have some time to deliver features, maybe some pending patches, which if they're safe enough. So if you have a pull request open to the Keptn core repository, if you feel strongly that it needs to be landed, probably it's a time to bring it up if you want to have it in the LCS. If not, we can keep it integrated after the LCS cutoff, and basically then eventually, if we agree to really create a new LCS baseline, then this patch would be also included. But yeah, I think for us it would be beneficial to include as much safe patches as possible to the main branch. Well, for unsafe patches it's a bit different, but yeah, you know. So that's the timeline.
One thing on the timeline, maybe I want to clarify one thing is we aim towards the end of November, but
Yep.
since we want to also to bring the different services like Prometheus, Datadog, and all the companion ones as part of the LTS, this date might go a bit on the future because we want to make sure that the compatibility of the services with Keptn works out of the box.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So currently we are working with Suresh on Datadog service. I'm also working with York and a few other people on Dynatrace service, which we agreed to include into the LTS pack because they're active maintainers. And there are basically 3 remaining services we have on the list. It's a webhook service, it's a job executor service, and it's Prometheus service. So I guess the biggest problem for us right now is Prometheus service, right?
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
We had an old request. What about a specific download page when we go into LDS? Right now, I looked. I ran into it as a link for where you go for the CLI to install the CLI, and I ran into it's beautifully written like release notes page, which I finally dug down far enough and found assets, which gave me links to Keptn, but not to the Keptn CLI.
Yeah, I think we will go more or less with Keptn LTS by default. So when we have links, installation guidelines, I think that we should default to LTS because it should provide more stable experience for users. And we know that for a fact that in previous releases, it was a problem for early adopters to keep everything in place. So the tutorials were always outdated, and probably they will be. Also, there were a bunch of integration issues. So my default approach would be to recommend LTS everywhere, except for the features where we explicitly recommend to try out new version because there is something available, maybe even behind the feature flag.
Yeah, that's fine. My issue is I want to go to a page and instantly see where I click to download and not have to sit there and look at it for 10 minutes trying to find where I might click to download.
So I guess what it implies that, for example, for these links, etc. So basically, if you follow the guidelines, you would be installing LCS. The consequence is that for latest releases, we will need to create something else to have all this download infrastructure. So I need to talk to more to understand how much of the effort it would take. But yeah, I think that by default, we target that when we release 0.20 or 1.0, basically all the links remain the same. So basically, the current release pipeline for what we have in main branch becomes the LTS release pipeline. And for further releases of latest and greatest in Jenkins terms, we create a new release pipeline and probably a new repository. Does it make sense with everyone?
No,
Thank you, Dennis. So let's see. Honest feedback on the plan. Okay. Yep, but it's actually a very good point, Mac, because I need to document it in the cap. I haven't.
And I mean, I think in the documentation, we've got places where we say if you don't specify the release, you're going to get the latest. But
yeah, so I would suggest
we have to be prepared for the fact that there may be a 1.0.3 at some point, and it's important to specify that. Or
yeah. So yeah, I know it's tempting to recommend the latest version everywhere so that people immediately get new features. But what I've seen in all projects, when you go this way, you actually end up in a royal mess at some point.
Right.
So I would rather default.
We have to quickly upgrade for a security release, and we can't get all of the integrations done that quickly. So if they're really tied to an integration, they may have to avoid the latest for a couple of.
Okay.
Yeah. We've all seen it.
Yeah. And maybe since we are speaking about other branch for latest, maybe we could just have continuous delivery for now, because again, if it's latest and greatest, if you already have charts, etc., you already have experience with doing quite quick release cycles in Keptn when it was needed. So yeah, as we discussed in the cap, we are not doing these monthly releases anyway until it's strictly needed. But we can actually go even forward and basically do continuous delivery or automatic weekly releases if there is some content, whatever is needed to get the features available earlier, so that we can see how they fare, how we backport them. But yeah. Okay. So anything else on the release timeline? Okay, Meg, would you like to take care of the documentation part?
Sure. I think we discussed last week, we're going to restructure the documentation so that the quick start and the concepts and installation are at the same level as operate and manage in the reference pages. To implement this, I have a feeling I can do it in a day. I'm almost positive I can do it in 2 days, but there's always the risk of surprises. So I was looking for a time when we could shut down the repo, and I was told that everybody in Europe has November 1st off, which means almost everybody's going to take October 31st off. And since I'm in the United States, I'm like, fine, that's my time. So Giovanni, is it possible we need to, like, at any given point, let's close as many PRs as we can, and then create the 1.0.x source tree or whatever it's going to do, and do that standard, put everything over there?
So my recommendation would be to create a 1.x branch, well, not branch, folder, as soon as possible, because it would also allow to document all these download guidelines, etc. So we can build for that. And yeah, basically when on this All Saints update, we just focus on moving the content from the root to folders. And
okay, yeah. Once we do that, I'm going to avoid there. It just I'm right now I'm doing doc improvements. Yeah, and whenever we do it, let's close any PRs we can. I'm doing doc improvements right now that do benefit 0.19. But yeah, that's it. But we quickly need to get in. This whole thing is going to need to be scrubbed for LTS.
Okay.
So Giovanni, some of it is when your people are ready to start dealing with that too. I don't know that we're having big content, new things to document or any. I'm not sure, but there's probably a lot of little cleanups. So we'll coordinate. That's why I just said by the Friday before everybody takes off for All Saints weekend, I need that repo, and sooner is fine. And is there anybody that's going to be inconvenienced by not being able to merge stuff into Keptn.github.io on October 30th, 31st, and November 1st? Okay, good. Nobody wants to do that anyhow. Also, I gave you a link, just a heads up. the old tutorials are a mess. We keep talking about it. We finally decided we have created an actual GitHub project for the 10 tutorials that show up on the tutorials page. Each one is an issue. Most of them have owners who so far haven't done anything, but I'm optimistic, who are supposed to go in and evaluate and say either this isn't this is so broken and we don't need it, or we've got the one that's been active went in and they want it and they're already making changes to update it. But as Oleg says, if they're broken, we want them off the webpage.
Yeah.
So if any of you are curious, there's a link where you can see any action, or if any of you care about any of the tutorials, feel free to jump in on them. Nobody cares if two people make an evaluation.
So there are basically two parts. Firstly, there is quick start, which is referenced on the Keptn.sh page, and there are also tutorials on tutorials.keptn.sh, which we have been unable to maintain. I think that for them plan is just we basically archive what we have and see whether we can rebuild particular bits with killer coda and with new stuff. But yeah, so let's see how the
and discuss some of the. Tutorials are the most expensive way we have of transmitting information, both to do it at first and maintenance. We shouldn't be doing tutorials gratuitously. We do them if we need them. As for Quick Start, we already agreed. I'm going to be driving a stake into heart of Quick Start probably tomorrow and taking the killer coda that we've got, which right now is called Explore Keptn, and that will become Quick Start.
Yeah, I heard something about the wellness day tomorrow. But yeah, it's just keep in mind.
I'm sorry. You can't trust me on today's and tomorrow's. Part of me still thinks it's Wednesday night here. So when I say tomorrow, I'm talking about totally. I have no idea what today and tomorrow and the rest of the day are.
It's still Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, thanks a lot for this heads up. And yeah, I think that we will be rolling new documentation and it will help everyone. So, any other topics to discuss today?
Moritz just shows up. Does he have anything?
But no.
Yeah,
nice to see your smiling face, though.
Yeah, maybe just a quick heads up for you that basically the plan for Keptn LTS is that we keep the current release infrastructure and pipelines. So basically, what is current becomes LTS. And for latest and greatest, we can probably just build continuous delivery for now, or maybe some lightweight release process, because we might need another chart repository for that, etc., etc. So maybe we can just kick it down the road a bit until there is real use case to make a major release after LCS.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So, anything else?
Not here.
Yeah, then I'll take this little guy to the childcare. And yeah, see you all after the lunch.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Whomever goes to KubeCon, enjoy.
Sure.
We are definitely waiting for cool reports after the KubeCon.
Yeah,
thanks
enjoy
so much,
Detroit.
Andy, Eloise, and everyone else. Johannes, who else is going from Keptn? Brett is going, Afzal is going, if I understood correctly. So yeah, it will be quite a party there. Okay, enjoy.
Bye.
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 Bye.